What would you do if one day you discovered your wife was cheating on you? And not just with anyone but with your own boss. How do you cope when betrayal becomes part of your daily life, and lies are the only language spoken at home? This story isn't just about revenge. It's about inner strength, resilience, and the courage to start over. Stay with us to find out how one man managed to turn his pain into a new beginning, and why sometimes silence is the most powerful answer of all. The Worm of Lies. Ethan's story is that of a man who lived for years in the illusion of happiness. At 34, he had built a seemingly perfect life in the suburbs of Chicago. A stable job as an engineer at a major construction company, a cozy home, and a wife, Olivia, with whom he'd shared almost 8 years. Their meeting at a friend's party had felt like fate. Olivia was smart, beautiful, with a sharp sense of humor and an infectious laugh. She knew how to support him in tough times, inspire him to new achievements, and Ethan was sure their marriage was a fortress, unbreakable by any storm. But even the strongest walls can crack if a worm of lies gnaws at them long enough. It all started with little things. Olivia began staying late at work, always blaming urgent projects. Her phone was always with her, now protected by a new password. She grew colder, more distant, and Ethan chalked it up to stress or personal issues she didn't want to discuss. He refused to believe the worst, clinging to the illusion of happiness. One day, returning from a business trip, Ethan wasn't greeted by his wife. In the bedroom, Olivia sat on the bed, absorbed in her phone. When he tried to hug her, she pulled away, saying, "You must be tired. Go take a shower." That night, Ethan couldn't sleep, and the next morning he left for work earlier than usual. Questions swirled in his mind, but there were no answers. The business trips became more frequent. His boss, Mr. Carter, a man in his mid-50s, suddenly started sending Ethan to other cities for the smallest reasons. His salary increased, bonuses appeared. Olivia seemed happy for his success, but there was a shadow in her eyes, fatigue, maybe irritation. One evening, Olivia's friend Grace called Ethan and asked to meet. In a small cafe on the edge of town, she nervously fidgeted with her napkin before finally exhaling, "Olivia is cheating on you. With your boss." Ethan didn't believe her, but Grace showed him photos. Olivia and Mr. Carter together at a restaurant, then leaving a hotel. He stared at the pictures, unable to recognize his wife. "I'm sorry," Grace said, "but you deserve to know the truth." That night, Ethan didn't go home. He sat in his car by the lake, trying to figure out what to do next. He realized that if he lost control now, he'd destroy everything, and Olivia and Mr. Carter would just get away with it. He needed to act differently, calmly and strategically. When he returned home, Ethan pretended nothing had happened. Olivia greeted him with a forced smile, asked about his trip. He answered as usual, even kissed her on the cheek. In that moment he decided he would play the role of the naive husband until he was ready. From that day, Ethan started saving money. He opened a separate account in his sister Mia's name so Olivia wouldn't suspect anything. He took on more work, accepted every business trip, and funneled bonuses into the secret account. In the evenings, he researched real estate, looking for land to build a house. Olivia noticed nothing. She lived her own life, growing more distant. Sometimes Ethan caught her in a lie, but he pretended to believe every word. He became a master of pretense. At work, Ethan played his part as well. Mr. Carter kept sending him on trips, and Ethan acted grateful for the trust. In reality, he was gathering information. Documents, emails, schemes that might interest competitors or regulators. He knew it would come in handy one day. Grace would sometimes text asking how he was holding up. He replied briefly, never sharing details. The fewer people who knew, the better. Time dragged on. The hardest moments were watching Olivia and Mr. Carter at the annual company party. Ethan stood by the window with a glass of whiskey, hiding his true feelings behind a polite smile. Olivia arrived later than usual, in an elegant navy dress, her hair in a loose bun, her lips painted red. She immediately caught Mr. Carter's attention. Their eyes met, a spark passing between them. Olivia walked over, he leaned in, whispered something in her ear. She laughed, touched his hand. "You look especially beautiful tonight, Olivia," Ethan overheard as he approached. "Thank you," she replied, glancing at Carter from under her lashes. "Must be the good company." They stood too close. Mr. Carter's hand slipped to her waist as they laughed at a joke. Olivia didn't pull away. She leaned in as if sharing a secret. Ethan watched with icy calm. He knew what was really happening, what those glances and touches meant. But he didn't let a single emotion show. A colleague came over to chat, and Ethan kept up the conversation, never taking his eyes off Olivia and Mr. Carter. He saw them slip out to the terrace, where there were fewer people and more shadows. Olivia glanced back. Their eyes met for a moment, and he saw a flicker of anxiety before she turned away. Ethan took a sip of whiskey, feeling everything tighten inside. He knew this game would soon be over, and then the masks would fall. The party wound down. Guests left, and Ethan watched as Olivia and Mr. Carter returned from the terrace, acting as if nothing had happened. Olivia caught Ethan's eye and smiled, too wide, too forced. "Did you miss me?" she asked as she came over. "It was fine," Ethan replied evenly. "Did you have a good time?" "Of course," she shrugged. "You know I love these events." Mr. Carter passed by, nodding with fake friendliness. "Great party, right? Olivia's the life of it." Ethan nodded, suppressing the urge to say something sharp. Instead, he helped Olivia with her coat, and they left for the waiting cab. The ride home was silent. Olivia stared out the window, Ethan at his hands. Each played their part. She the tired but content wife. He the calm, slightly weary husband. "You barely danced tonight," Olivia finally said. "Wasn't in the mood," Ethan replied. "Hope you're not upset I spent so much time with colleagues," she asked, her tone too light. "No, it's fine," he said, not looking at her. At home, Olivia went straight to the bathroom, humming as if nothing had happened. Ethan stood in the hallway, slowly taking off his coat, listening to the water running. Later, as they lay in bed, a gulf of silence stretched between them. Olivia turned to the wall. Ethan stared at the ceiling, listening to her steady breathing. Each kept their own truth, unwilling to break the fragile balance of lies. A year passed. Ethan built a house in a nearby town, putting it in Mia's name. Olivia thought he was just working hard for their family, even complaining to friends that he was too busy and distant. All this time, Ethan watched Olivia and Mr. Carter, their careful glances and casual touches at company events. He saw how they thought they'd fooled him, and it only strengthened his resolve. Every day he woke up feeling like he was living someone else's life. A set piece in a play where he played the perfect husband. Olivia grew more distant, but Ethan never slipped, never gave a hint of suspicion. Outwardly, they were a normal couple. At family dinners, he talked about work, new projects, how tired he was from travel. Olivia nodded, sometimes smiled, but her eyes were far away. He knew she lied when she said she loved him. He knew she met Mr. Carter when he was away. But he endured. Sometimes Ethan wanted to throw it all away, to scream, to throw her things out. But he remembered the photos Grace had shown him and held back. He had to see his plan through. At work, Ethan became indispensable. Mr. Carter trusted him with the toughest projects, and Ethan gathered more and more evidence of his boss's shady dealings. He knew Carter was breaking the law, that his deals were far from clean. Ethan collected documents, made copies, recorded conversations. All of it would become his weapon. He rarely saw Mia, his sister. She sensed something was wrong but didn't know the truth. Sometimes she asked, "Ethan, are you okay? You seem different." He smiled and said, "I'm fine, Mia. Just a lot of work." Rachel, the company accountant, sometimes stayed late. They'd exchange a few words in the hallway. She was attentive, always willing to help, but Ethan didn't let himself think of anything more. He was married, even if only in name. Olivia spent more and more evenings out, claiming to meet friends, go to yoga, volunteer. Ethan knew it was a lie, but pretended to believe. Sometimes she came home late, smelling of someone else's perfume, with a tired smile. "Did you miss me?" she'd ask, undressing in the hallway. "Of course I did," he'd reply, looking her straight in the eyes. In those moments, Ethan felt like a traitor to himself. But he knew exactly why he was enduring all of this. One evening, after returning from yet another business trip, Ethan found Olivia sitting in the kitchen with a glass of wine, staring pensively out the window. "Ethan," she suddenly said, "have you ever thought that we've become strangers?" He froze for a moment but quickly regained his composure. "Why do you think that?" he asked. "I don't know. Just a feeling. You're always busy and so am I. We barely talk anymore." Ethan sat down across from her and took her hand. "Olivia, every couple goes through tough times. We'll get through this." She nodded, but he could see she didn't really care. That night, she slept on the very edge of the bed, turned away from him. Everything was going according to plan. Ethan had gathered enough evidence against Mr. Carter, prepared documents to hand over to competitors and regulatory authorities. The house was finished, the money safely transferred to Mia's account. All that was left was to wait for the right moment. He chose a day when Olivia was away for the weekend with friends and Mr. Carter was in the office. Ethan submitted his resignation by email. That same day, he sent all the project files to a rival company and filed complaints with several government agencies, detailing every violation he had uncovered over the years. That evening, he met with Mr. Carter's wife, Mrs. Carter, and told her everything. He showed her the photos, the messages, explained how long it had been going on. She was shocked, but thanked him for his honesty. When Olivia returned home, Ethan calmly told her that he knew everything. He explained that he had been aware of her affair for 3 years, that the house she had dreamed of would never be hers, and that he had filed for divorce. Olivia stood in the middle of the living room, her face pale, her eyes wide with disbelief and fear. You knew all this time?" she whispered, clutching her phone. Ethan nodded, his gaze steady. "Yes, Olivia. I knew. From the very beginning. I saw your photos, read your messages, overheard your conversations. I knew when you lied to me, when you left to see him, when you came home and pretended everything was fine." She sank onto the couch, covering her face with her hands. For the first time in a long while, Ethan felt relief. He no longer had to pretend. "Why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you kick me out right away?" Her voice trembled. Because I wanted you to realize what you'd lost. I wanted you to see your world built on lies come crashing down. I wanted you to feel what I felt all these years." Olivia sobbed, but Ethan felt neither pity nor anger. Everything between them had died long before this conversation. "I've filed for divorce," he said quietly. "The house I built is in my sister's name. You get nothing. I'm leaving." She didn't try to stop him. She just watched as he packed his things. In that moment, Ethan knew he was finally free. Soon after Ethan left, the changes he had been preparing for finally began. The company where he had worked for so many years was rocked by a major scandal. One investigation followed another. Competitors received all the files and documents Ethan had been collecting for 3 years. Government agencies launched their own inquiries, and soon the office was raided. Mr. Carter was fired in disgrace, his reputation destroyed, and his wife, Mrs. Carter, filed for divorce, taking most of their assets. Olivia tried to contact Ethan. She sent long messages, called him, but he never responded. For him, that chapter was truly closed. He moved into the new house he had built with his own hands and began to rebuild his life from scratch. His sister Mia helped him, supporting him through the hard times, and their relationship became stronger than ever. One evening, Ethan decided it was time to tell Mia the whole truth. They sat together on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, enjoying the quiet. Mia was the first to break the silence. "I'm glad you got out of all that," she said. "But you're still different. You never told me what really happened. I always felt you were hiding something." Ethan looked at his sister and for the first time in a long while decided to be completely honest. He told her everything. About Olivia's betrayal, how he found out, his plan, and how he had carried that burden alone for 3 years, not confiding in anyone. Mia listened quietly, sometimes squeezing his hand, sometimes wiping away tears. When he finished, she simply said, "You shouldn't have gone through this alone. I'm proud of you, but I'm so sorry you had to endure all of it." Ethan felt the last heavy weight lift from his soul. Now he was truly free. His personal life also began to change. Rachel, the accountant from his former company, became more than just a colleague. She became a true friend. One day she called him. "Ethan, I heard you left the company. How are you?" "Honestly, better than I've been in the last 3 years," he replied with a slight smile. "Maybe we could meet up? Just to talk. I know things haven't been easy for you." They met in a cozy cafe. Rachel was as sincere and kind as ever. They talked for hours, laughed, reminisced about funny moments from the office. For the first time in a long while, Ethan felt he could be himself, without pretending or hiding his feelings. Soon their meetings became regular. Rachel never asked unnecessary questions or demanded explanations. She was simply there, and that was enough. Gradually, something more than friendship grew between them. Rachel became the person with whom Ethan could make plans for the future, dream about traveling, discuss books and movies. Several months passed. Ethan started a new life, without lies, without betrayal, without pain. He worked on his own projects, spent a lot of time outdoors, and reconnected with friends he hadn't seen in years. Olivia never reappeared in his life. He heard she had moved to another city, trying to start over. Mr. Carter disappeared from the business world. His name was never mentioned again. Rachel became more than just a friend to Ethan. With her, he felt calm and confident. Together, they made plans for the future, dreamed, discussed books and films. Looking back, Ethan realized that everything that had happened was necessary. He had become stronger, wiser, learned to trust himself and his feelings. He was no longer afraid of being alone, no longer clung to illusions. Ethan's life had changed, but he was grateful for the experience. He knew that only the best was ahead. Time passed, and the past gradually lost its hold on Ethan. He found himself thinking less and less about what he had gone through, and more often realized that he was living in the present. His home was now filled with light and warmth, not just because of the comfort he created with Mia, but also thanks to the new feelings Rachel brought into his life. One spring evening, as the sun was setting over the horizon, Ethan sat on the porch with a cup of tea. Rachel joined him, wrapped herself in a blanket, and quietly asked, "Are you happy?" Ethan thought for a moment. He looked at her kind eyes, her gentle smile, and suddenly realized that for the first time in many years, he could answer honestly, "Yes, I really am happy." Rachel smiled wider and took his hand. In that moment, Ethan felt that all the pain, betrayal, and loneliness were far behind him. Now he had a new life, one with no place for lies or fear. Soon he began making plans for the future. Together with Rachel, they set off on a small road trip across the country, something they had both dreamed of for a long time. They wandered through unfamiliar towns, laughed, took photos, and tried local food. Ethan felt free, light, as if he was learning to enjoy the simple things in life all over again. One day, returning home after a trip, he paused at his doorstep, looked at his house, and realized this was no longer just walls and a roof, but a place where he could truly be himself. A place where he was loved and accepted. That evening, sitting by the fireplace, Ethan wrote a short letter to his past self, the man he had been 3 years ago. "You made it. You survived. You learned to forgive and let go. Now you are free and worthy of happiness." He folded the note, put it in his desk drawer, and smiled. Ahead of him was a new chapter, honest, bright, and real. And Ethan was ready for it like never before. Ethan's story is not just about betrayal and revenge. It's a deep drama about trust, choice, and the inner strength of a person. Any one of us can find ourselves in a situation where our familiar world collapses, when those we trusted most turn out to be capable of lies and betrayal. In such moments, it feels like the ground is slipping from under your feet, and you want to either destroy everything or run away from the pain. But what do you do when the betrayal comes from the person closest to you? Ethan chose the path of patience and reason. He didn't create a scandal or let his emotions take over. Instead, he gathered all his willpower, built a strategy, and step by step prepared the ground for a new life. His story is an example of how important it is not to lose yourself, even in the most difficult circumstances, how important it is to keep your dignity and not stoop to the level of those who betrayed you. This story raises many questions. Why do people lie to those they once loved? Why do we so often cling to illusions, afraid to face the truth and take decisive action? For a long time, Ethan lived in a world where every day was like a performance, where he played the role of a happy husband, even though everything inside was broken. But it was this time that allowed him to understand himself, to learn to forgive and let go. Support plays a special role in this story. Even when it seems you're completely alone, there is always someone who is ready to listen, to support, just to be there. For Ethan, that person was his sister Mia and later Rachel. Their presence helped him not to become bitter, not to close himself off, but to believe in people and in love again. This story is a reminder that after any storm, calm will come, and after the darkest night, the dawn always follows. The main thing is not to be afraid of change, Not to be afraid to be honest with yourself and with others. Sometimes to start a new life, you have to let go of the old one, no matter how painful that loss may be. What do you think? Did Ethan do the right thing? Should he have endured and gathered evidence for so long? Or would it have been better to confront his wife right away? What would you have done in his place? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm really interested to hear your opinions. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new dramatic stories about life, love, and the choices we make. Your feedback and support mean a lot and help make the content even better.